HR. Jennifer Santos is the Program Development Manager at BBB National Programs and is leading the development of the Institute for Responsible Influence. It's an initiative dedicated to advancing best practices and accountability in influencer marketing to keep it a very stable economy that we have. So I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer.
Great. Thanks so much, Sylvia. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much to #Paid for having me. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so talking about something that I think is becoming increasingly important as the creator economy sort of grows up, and that's trust. So rather than give you a presentation full of rules, I thought we'd make this more practical. We're going to look at 8 mistakes that creators commonly make when it comes to responsible influence, and more importantly, how to avoid them. I think first we should talk about why responsible influence even matters, right? Creating content isn't just a hobby anymore. For many of you, it's a business. And of course, brands are increasingly seeing creators as real business partners. And essentially, there's really 2 relationships of trust that you as a creator are managing. Your audience is asking, can I trust this person's recommendation? And brands are asking, can I trust this creator with my brand? That's why we think responsible influence is really now becoming a competitive advantage for creators. And really, this is why we partnered with #Paid for our pilot program back in March before we launched our certification, because we have this shared view that trust is really the future of creator marketing. It's not about following rules simply because the rules exist. It's about becoming the kind of creator that audiences trust and that brands want to work with again and again. So with that in mind, let's get to the 8 mistakes I have listed out here. Let's start with a concern that we hear from creators all the time. If I disclose that this is an ad, is my audience going to like my content less? And I understand why this is a worry. You've worked hard to build an audience that values your authentic recommendation. You don't want putting #ad or some other disclosure on a post to suddenly make that recommendation feel less genuine. But our own research tells a pretty interesting story. In 2025, we did an influencer trust index. We surveyed more than 3,700 US consumers from ages 18 to 65, and 7 out of 10 of those consumers told us they feel negatively towards a creator if they find out that the creator was paid or received free product and didn't tell them about it. And here's the other finding that's really interesting for creators. 70% of those consumers also told us that simply partnering with a brand doesn't make the creator less trustworthy. In other words, consumers get that this is a business for creators that they trust, that they follow. They understand that creators work with brands and that they get paid for their work, and they're usually fine with that. So the partnership isn't the problem. Hiding the partnership is the problem. And that's what you can see in this example here. A disclosure like #ad doesn't have to take over your content. It can be clear, upfront, still feel completely natural within the post. Brands care about that trust too. They're partnering with you because of the relationship you have with your audience. So when you handle disclosures professionally, you're protecting your credibility, you're protecting the brand's credibility, and also the value of that partnership that you have with the brand. So I think at the outset here, it's important to note that transparency is not the enemy of authenticity. It's part of what makes the authenticity believable. Mistake number 2. We see this quite a bit through our monitoring program, the use of affiliate links and discount codes without proper disclosure. So sometimes creators think that, well, the brand didn't actually pay me to make this post, so this really isn't sponsored content. But look at this example on the left. If you are earning a commission when someone clicks on your link or uses your code or buys something from your storefront, there's a financial relationship there. And that's information that your audience deserves to know and that the FTC requires that you tell your audience. So really, an easy question to ask yourself is, do I benefit if someone buys what I'm promoting? If the answer is yes, stop and think about whether that relationship needs to be disclosed. And if it does, you should disclose it like this, the example on the right, where you can see creator earns commission. There's lots of other ways you can do this. This is just one simple example. So now, why do brands care here? From a disclosure perspective, affiliate marketing is still marketing. So if you're earning commission and that relationship isn't clear, it can create risk for both you and the brand. And if I'm a brand choosing between two creators and one consistently understands when a disclosure is required and the other doesn't, it's going to factor into who I feel safer working with. And that brings us to another issue that we see all the time. Sometimes the disclosure technically exists, but it's not doing its job. A creator might say, but I disclosed it. And technically, maybe they did, but where is it? So if you look at the example on the left, can you find the disclosure? It's not that easy, right? It's all the way up in the right-hand corner, but it's small, it's hard to read. If your audience has to hunt for it, the disclosure is not doing its job. Maybe it's below the more button. Maybe it's tiny text over a busy video. Maybe it's buried at the end of a long caption. The goal isn't to simply have a disclosure. The goal is for people to notice it and understand what it means. The example on the right is a clear and conspicuous disclosure. It's hard to miss. The goal is for the person consuming your content to notice it, the disclosure, and understand what the disclosure means. Brands care about this, again, because they don't want to have to come back to you after you've posted to say, can you move the disclosure? Can you make it bigger? Can you add it to the video? The creators who get this right the first time make it easier to hire them the next time. Mistake number 4, thinking a brand tag is a disclosure. This is another one that we see a lot in our monitoring program. If you look at the post on the left, you can clearly see the brand is tagged. So we know who the creator is talking about. But what we don't know why they're talking about them. Did they buy the product themselves? Was it gifted? Are they being paid? Do they earn a commission? A tag identifies the brand. A disclosure identifies the relationship. So those two things are not the same. So if there's a financial relationship between the brand and yourself, you need to disclose it. A brand tag is not enough. The second post here on the right, you can see clearly discloses the relationship as a brand partner. This matters to brands because ambiguity around sponsored content creates risk for them. And it's also a very basic mistake that can signal that a creator may need more oversight with the brand, and that's just more work and more annoyance for the brand. Let's talk about mistake number 5. Relying only on platform disclosure tools. You've all seen tools like paid partnership or paid content, and they're very helpful. We really encourage you to use them. You can see one in this example on the left-hand side of your screen. But I think here's the important part that I want to point out. The Federal Trade Commission, who will look at your advertising, has been clear that you shouldn't automatically assume that a platform disclosure tool is enough on its own. And there's a real practical reason for that I don't think gets talked about a lot. Think about how your content travels. Someone shares your reel. A video gets downloaded. You repurpose a piece of content on another platform. The platform disclosure doesn't necessarily travel with the content. That's why putting your own disclosure in your own content itself is so important. See, the better posts here on the right-hand side of your screen has a disclosure in the content itself, in addition to using the platform tool. So I would suggest, in order to avoid this mistake, in order to garner trust with the brand, garner trust with your audience, use the platform tool. Just don't let it do all of the work. Mistake number 6. Our first 5 mistakes were mostly about disclosure, but responsible influence doesn't stop at #ad. There's lots of other decisions that you make as a creator that can affect trust. AI is one. If you're using AI in a way that could materially change what your audience believes they're seeing, transparency becomes important. You need to talk to your brands about whether they allow you to use AI. Music and copyright, just because audio is easy to find online doesn't necessarily mean you have the right to use it in sponsored content. Use in personal content is very different than use in sponsored content. Editing and filters. Think about whether the way you're editing something could give consumers a misleading impression about what the product you're promoting actually does. And then, of course, there's claims. Is what I'm saying truthful and supportable? We'll talk about that a little more in a further slide. This is where the brand side becomes especially important. A brand isn't just asking, did a creator use a disclosure? That's not the only thing that matters here. They're thinking about the entire piece of content that's now associated with their brand. So responsible influence is not just about disclosures. It's about how you approach the content you're creating. Now, mistake number 7 just might be my favorite because it's actually practical for you. So because this mistake is my favorite because being a responsible influencer can actually make your life easier. Look at the 2 paths here. You have a hard way where you create content, you post it, potentially the brand flags it, requires you to edit it, you have to send it back to them. Maybe there's another round of review, and then there's a repost. Whereas there's an easy way where you can create your content, do a quick check either on your own or with the brand, and then post your content. I think it's safe to say that nobody wants the hard path. So before you hit post, take time to check your post. Is my disclosure clear? Are my claims accurate? Do I have the rights I need? Did I follow the brand brief? And if you still have questions after that, reach out to the brand and ask them, hey, I have this question. Having that relationship only makes the trust build quicker, easier, and deeper. And then, put yourself in the brand manager's shoes. They may be managing dozens of creators. Who are they going to work with again? The creator whose content goes through smoothly. Brands remember creators who make their lives easier. One last mistake to bring up here is, I think that it is a little more nuanced. Creators sometimes say, but I'm just telling people what happened to me. And this really gets into making claims about a product. Sharing your genuine experience is absolutely part of what makes your content powerful. It's why people follow you. It's why you can influence people's purchasing decisions. So sharing your genuine experience is very important, but there's a difference between sharing your personal experience and then making a claim that goes beyond your personal experience. So if you look at the post on your left, the creator here is saying something like, I've been using this for 2 weeks and my skin feels less dry. That's describing their experience. Now compare that with the content on the right that says this will cure your dry skin in 48 hours. Now we've crossed the line. Now this creator is promising their audience a result. And that's the distinction. This happened to me is different from this will happen to you. Brands care a lot about this because brands have to be able to support the claims that are being made about their products. So if you've taken an approved message and turned it into a stronger promise the brand can't support, you've created risk for the brand. So share your experience, just don't over promise. So those are our 8 mistakes. What does a responsible creator do differently? When you pull all 8 of these mistakes together, it's really these 3 things that a responsible creator does differently. They know the rules, they build trust intentionally, and they stay ready because platforms change, technology changes, regulation change, and just in general, the creator economy changes. And that's exactly where the Institute for Responsible Influence, or IRI, can help to fill the gap. The IRI certification is designed specifically to help you, the creator, be a responsible influencer. First, you learn. It's about 90 minutes of practical scenario-based training, not hours of legal lectures. We make it very practical and very easy for you to apply the rules. Then you prove what you know. You complete the exam. It's a 25-question exam, and you sign a best practices pledge. And then you get a seal that you can then show to others on your media kits, on your LinkedIn profiles, on your link trees, to let people know that responsible influencers matters to you and you know the rules. And then you stay accountable. This is something that's really important about IRI. Certification is not the end of the relationship. IRI monitors certified creators' content on an ongoing basis, and we provide feedback to help you stay on track. Our goal is not to catch you doing something wrong. Our goal is to help you get it right. But you've heard enough from me. Now, I think it was really important today for us to also let you hear from someone who's actually experienced the program as a creator. Grace participated in the #paid pilot and completed the IRI certification program. So Grace, I'd love to hear what the experience was like from your perspective. Let's start with what made you decide to take the certification?
Well, hi everybody, I'm Grace. I had the privilege of taking the certification, and when #Pay first invited me to participate in the pilot program, I was like, oh yeah, of course, this is like a no-brainer, especially because I manage my brand partnerships independently, don't have a manager or anything, so I thought it was just the next right step to take, because it was just so important that I understand all the rules, because I think a lot of times as creators, it's easy to miss out on specific rules that we're not even thinking about or don't even know. So yeah, it was super informative, and I definitely learned a lot.
That's great. What surprised you most about the course?
How in-depth and detailed it was. I think like while I was going through it, I was just like, wow, I wasn't really thinking about this. Or even some of the examples that you were talking about, just having like a #ad isn't enough, because you do have to disclose, right? You do have to say like, yeah, I got paid or I got gifted this, and I'm actually making money from this too. So I think it's actually fair for consumers to know that before they do purchase something from you.
That's great. One unique part about the certification program is our ongoing monitoring program. So I'd love to hear from you. What was your initial reaction to being monitored? And then how or if, I guess, has your perspective changed?
So at first, I think I was a little bit intimidated, because it kind of goes back to just being my own independent, um, like manager, creator. I didn't have anyone actually telling me all the rules, but it was just like nice reminders, and it made me realize like, wow, there's so many things that I'm totally missing out on an everyday basis. So it's almost kind of like a layer of accountability and support. So it's nice.
Great. So
Yeah.
perspective change from being intimidated to it being like
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah.
Okay.
I feel like the monitoring is supposed to be, yeah, just like a different level of support that you didn't realize like you needed, type of thing.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you feel like that, because that is definitely our intention. Our intention is not like a gotcha moment. Our intention is
Yeah,
100% to be like, hey, we can help you here. You know, you might want to
yeah,
consider this. Yeah, good.
yeah. Because the last thing that you want as a creator is to get in trouble. You
Yeah.
know, like in the
Mhm,
future, because
mhm,
it's really scary, and a lot of times like we're not really fully prepared for them.
mhm. Is there anything in your content or your workflow as you create content that you've changed since becoming certified?
I would say that I'm definitely more aware. And I check like all the briefs, the contracts a little bit more in depth now, just to make
Mhm,
sure that we're on the same page. Because like I think you'd be surprised at how many how many brands might not have like all of the little bit of details. So that's also important too. I've definitely, like, even personally, when I have like products that I'm still using past the sponsorships, like I'm always tagging and making sure that I have all the correct like hashtags and make sure that like I'm following all the instructions. So yeah, it's definitely more on top of mind now.
that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
And then I guess my final question is just, would you recommend the program? And if so, why?
of course. I
I think it's definitely just important for creators and brands to just know the industry, and honestly just like all of the foundation. I would say this is more of a foundation that all creators should know. It's kind of one of those things where you learn as you go, but I would say it's actually one of the more important things, because yes, if people are buying based off of your personality and your voice, but this is the things that just happen in the background, where I think, you know, especially like newer creators who have like no insight within the industry, they'll definitely be a head forward um, in their creator journey.
That's awesome. And that, you know, all of the points that you're hitting are really great to hear from my perspective, because that is really the point, is that it is supposed to be like a foundational knowledge, because I think you also hit on the point that brands train differently, right? So depending on who you work with, they might say one thing, or another brand might say another thing. And the point of this is to give you, the creator, that baseline knowledge so that you can then engage in those conversations with the different brands. So
yeah,
that is great to hear. That's great to hear. Thank you so much.
yeah,
I really appreciate you, you know, sharing your experience, because I think it's really important for other creators to hear. I
yeah, of
think that is
course.
all that I have. I know that we definitely wanted to leave some time for questions. I guess to sort of wrap up, if there's one thing that I hope you take away from today, it's that responsible influence isn't about making your content less creative or less authentic. That is absolutely not our goal. It's really about protecting the thing that makes your influence valuable in the first place, which is trust. Trust with your audience, trust with brands, and then really trust in you as a professional creator. So this is the info up here is it'll take you to the site, which can take you to the program that you can then you know, purchase to become a certified creator. And anyone can reach out to me. I'm happy to always have conversation.
Thank you,
And then
Jennifer.
the other thing too, sorry, I
Yeah.
was just gonna say, I don't know if you touch upon it, Jennifer, but
Mhm.
after you take the certification, you could also add that you got certified on LinkedIn, if
Mhm.
anybody else here still use LinkedIn, and then you could also put it in your media kit too. So it also just increases your credibility as a creator.
Great. Thanks, Grace. Yeah, that's really important and super important to us. So glad to hear it's important to you guys too.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for bringing us through that. And I know, Grace, you've worked on #Paid with a bunch of different projects, and I think it's great to just note that, someone like you who is very aware and wants to make sure that you're doing everything right, like you are the type of person that #Paid likes working with, because we know you're going to do it right. We're going to get it right. And it's not going to cause issues. And like Jennifer said earlier, you want to work with people who are going to make things smooth and easy, and not someone that you're going to have to follow up with and change things on, etc. So yeah, I loved that kind of all tied everything together, and we have a real example of Grace who we love using on the platform.
Oh, that makes me feel happy too. Thank you. I love working with you guys too.
With the quick 2 minutes that we have left, there were 2 questions that came in. So the first one was, are there any significant differences between Canada and the US when it comes to this? Since audiences cross between the two, which guidelines are we following? FTC guidelines or Canadian?
Yeah, there's actually a little portion about this in our training. And you really, if there's a significant part of your audience in Canada and you know that, or a significant part in the US, you really need to be following both rules. So if the rules are different, the rules are slightly different in Canada, you would just need to follow the rules that are more stringent, right? Because then you'd be applying both, or complying with both countries' rules. But there is a little section on that in the training.
Perfect. And then one other question we had was, for disclosure, what is the acceptable policy for IG stories, especially if there's a long sequence of stories, let's say on a press trip for a travel vertical? And funnily enough, I think, Jennifer, that's something that we kind of spoke about in some of our sessions previously, about travel. And, it's like, do you have to put ad on every single one?
Yeah. So, interesting. So if you're talking about, you should have some sort of disclosure in the actual content itself. If you have we have an exact example of this in the training. So the training is very scenario specific to try to help you see how the rule applies. So we have an exact example like this. So it's interesting that you asked this question. But if you're going to have a sequence of stories, really, you should be disclosing on every single ad. You can do it in a creative way, but you really should be posting on every ad that this trip was gifted to you, that there's a partnership, an ambassador, whatever the relationship is. It really should be on every post.
Yeah. I know we discussed a bunch of very unique scenarios, and a lot of those are incorporated in the course as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone else before we wrap this up? All right, I don't see anyone typing, so I think I'm good to wrap up here. But go ahead, Jennifer.
I see one. It says, should you have disclosure if partnerships aren't directly cash paid? For example, gifted, comped meals. Yes. That would be considered a material connection, and you do have to have disclosures like that. Again, we specifically address it because we get that question a lot about how to do that, what that should look like. So that is all in the training too. But the short answer, yes.
Someone asked, I was curious about the LinkedIn plug she mentioned. Was that a certification that we all can do?
Oh, yes. So the certification, when you take the training, you will get a seal. You have to pass the exam, 25 questions. You can take it as many times as you need to pass it. You sign a best practices pledge, and then you get a digital seal. So that's the digital seal that Grace was referring to, that you can then put on LinkedIn. You can put it in your media kit, anything like that. Oh, you're saying, when does the training start? It is all up to you. So you can go on our website and you can purchase the training. It's $100 to purchase the training. And then that, once you sign up and pay for the training, you can start it right away. The beautiful thing is that you can do it on your own time. So you can start and stop it. It doesn't need to be done in one sitting. Like I said, it's about 90 minutes, but you can do it on your own time. Grace, did you do it at once? I'm just curious. Did you do it at once, or did you kind of start and stop?
I'm pretty sure I did a one shot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have another question here. What is the most effective way to build relationships with brands without them reaching out to you first? Maybe that's a question for Grace.
I was going to say that's more like a question for Grace.
Yeah. So like personally, if there's things that I use on an everyday basis that I actually love, I'll just post them on my stories, or like I'll post about it. And even if it's not like a sponsored or a gifted product, I will do that. And you'd be surprised at how many brands like pay attention to that. So that's a good way to build relationships.
Yeah, and I think from a hashtag paid aspect, we also see a lot more sourcing for creators, looking for people that have maybe mentioned the brand before, or being able to join, of course, like platforms like hashtag paid. We get you guys connected to those brands that may have never heard of you before. And Grace, I'm sure you've had that experience as well, being able to apply to certain jobs or whatever it may be, and then getting to be right in front of the brand without really having to do too much.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me see if there's any other questions here. Is the training only for creators, or is there a benefit for managers/agents to take the training?
Definitely a benefit for managers and agents to take the training. We're getting a lot of questions about that. So we're talking to creators, like doing webinars like this, but we're also talking to brands. So we have a lot of interest from brands' internal teams to take the training. And the beautiful thing about that is that that foundation will be spread even more equally, right, across the creator economy. So you'll be speaking the same language, because the brands will be like, oh yeah, I understand that was done in module 1, or like everyone will have that same base knowledge. So yeah, definitely a benefit for managers and agents, and we're touting that to them.
Someone asked, they're new to the hashtag paid platform. How do we get started with opportunities? So we just linked a link right there where anyone can sign up and get started. Basically, in order to be surfaced for any opportunities, you do have to have your socials connected. Otherwise, you're just not going to show up in our search for creators. So make sure that you sign up, get your socials connected, get set up, and then you will have access to what we call our job board, which updates every single day to show you the newest opportunities that are on hashtag paid. And you will also be sent specifically any opt-ins where you might be a top fit for something. So that's an opportunity for you to be able to access those. Well, if we go through a search and we find that you're a top fit for a campaign we're working on, you'd be sent an opt-in directly, where you'd be able to opt in and get shown to the brand to see if they would be selecting you for the opportunity. Michelle, if you have any issues, you can definitely just message help@hashtagpaid.com. They'll be able to help you with connection issues. All right, well, we are going to work on wrapping up. If there's anything else that you guys need from a hashtag paid standpoint, help@hashtagpaid.com is your best way to get about those questions or those answers. And then Jennifer's contact information is right there as well, so you'll be able to contact her. And Grace, her Instagram is Grace F. Kim, so you guys can look her up as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hope everyone enjoyed the content.